Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm here at the Pearl Review, my new YouTube channel. I'm doing a series on classics and personal favorites for people who are looking to try these books out and just going over why I like these books and why I think they're special. So today I'd like to talk about Ivan Turgenev's Fathers and Sons. Turgenev was considered the most famous Russian author of his time. He's considered one of the Russian great authors. However, he's lesser known than his contemporaries Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, who he actually influenced. Tolstoy and Dostoevsky actually didn't get along with Turgenev. Tolstoy called out Turgenev to a duel when they were younger, and thankfully Turgenev turned him down on grounds of his pacifism. And Tolstoy later remarked about his gratitude for his decision, considering it would have been a huge cultural loss if either of them had died. Fathers and Sons is considered Turgenev's greatest work. It was published in 1862, a year after the emancipation of the serfs, which was a huge moment in Russian history. The peasant population was massive. Above them was a rigid aristocracy. And so this book is set in 1859, on the eve of the emancipation, when everyone knows it's about to happen and it's charging the air. The book literally translates from Russian into Fathers and Children, so not only do we have interesting young men that are rebelling against the older generation, there's also rebellious women who are unconventional. Turgenev was loved for his humanistic and realistic portrayal of unconventional characters. He breathed life into the form of the novel and was also at the same time a master of its form. He was friends with people like George Eliot. He was an interesting guy. I really loved this novel. It's very relatable. It's one of the most relatable books I've read in a long time. It centers around Bazarov, who is a nihilist. The book even solidified the cultural kind of understanding of what a nihilist is and what nihilism means. So Bazarov is representative of a youth movement in Russia at the time that's very famous. They railed against the crumbling political and cultural institutions of Russia. They were very cynical, outspoken, and rude, and Bazarov is that dialed up. Him and his best friend, Arkady Kirsanov, go to Kirsanov's parents' home soon after their graduation from college. The book has 3 hubs that the characters move between: Arkady Kirsanov's parents' home, Bazarov's parents' home, and also the home of a wealthy widow landowner that lives in a town that they visit. This book is at turns cruel, compassionate, funny, pathetic, and cathartic. The tension and compassion between the 2 generations is spot on for me. At the beginning of the novel, Bazarov is unbearable. He is just too rude, and it's awkward. And his character fleshes out over the course of the novel. Really, they all do. And the book isn't really sold on its plot. It's more of the intricacies of the relationships between all of the characters that I really enjoyed. This book is a little difficult for me to fully describe because there is a lot of underlying influences and historical context. So I am going to include a great quote from a Modern Scholars lecture series from a professor, Lisa Knapp, and she just has some great thoughts on the novel that I'd like to include.
The 19th century was all about challenging the authority of fathers and father figures, kings, gods, old-fashioned fathers. Freud, of course, would later give a name to the potentially violent generational conflict, the Oedipal complex, and claim it was intrinsic and universal to the relations of father and son. Still, Turgenev's novel is not only about the universal conflict of fathers and sons, nor is it about the general 19th century malaise about patriarchal authority. It has a certain specificity. It is rooted in a particular time in the history of Russia. The generation of these fathers who came of age in the 1840s and the generation of the sons who came of age in the 1860s are famous within the Russian context.
I listened to this book initially. I used the Audible edition, and at first I didn't really care for the narrator, and then I wound up being totally won over. And I enjoyed this book so much that I even purchased a hard copy for myself as well. I'm going to include a short clip of an emotional moment. I don't want to really give a lot away, so it's very short. I don't want you to know who's talking, what's going on, just an idea of the depth of emotion that this narrator portrays.
Thank you. He began to speak with an effort. I did not expect this. It was kind of you. Now, we have seen each other once again, as you promised.
This novel begs the question, which generation is right? It was a really controversial book of its time. There were even artistic responses to it. There is a character in Dostoevsky's Demons who is supposed to represent Turgenev, even though Dostoevsky publicly was very interested in this novel. Turgenev made Bazarov so sour that he wanted to make it harder to tell, what his opinions were. But he was very sympathetic to some of Bazarov's opinions. I think this novel is great if you enjoy 19th century novels. Also, if you enjoy realistic portrayals of family tension and dynamics. It was a really moving read. It's just about 200 pages long, and it's definitely a classic that is lesser known, but is a great contender. In terms of its other greats that it stands among. It is well loved in Russia, and it should be better loved here. So if you've read this, I hope you liked it as much as I did. If you have any thoughts about this review or the book, please comment below, and thank you so much for listening.